Everyone tells you a clean home is a prosperous home. They are not wrong, but they have never told you the part that costs you everything. Because there is one specific day of the week when reaching for that broom, when scrubbing that counter, when sorting through that pile of laundry is not an act of care. It is an act of rejection. And what you are unknowingly rejecting, week after week, is the single most concentrated channel of financial blessing that exists in your entire week. You are sweeping it right out the door, and then you spend the next 6 days wondering why nothing is moving. I am Rabbi Naomi, and I have spent 32 years inside these texts. My grandmother, may her memory be a blessing, passed this warning to me in a kitchen in Jerusalem when I was 19 years old. She did not speak it as a rule. She spoke it as a wound she had watched too many families carry without understanding. And in 3 decades of teaching, I have watched the same wound repeat itself in the most diligent, the most devoted, the most hard-working people I know. People who are doing nearly everything right and still feel like something invisible is working against them. There is always one piece missing, and for most people who come to me, when I find that missing piece, it is this. Before we go any further, I want you to type the words, "I receive," in the comments right now. Not in a moment, now, before we continue. The ancient teachers understood that a public declaration is not just speech, it is a spiritual positioning. When you write those words before you have even heard the full teaching, you are announcing your readiness to the forces that organize your life. You are placing yourself in the posture of the open vessel before the water arrives. Type it now, and then stay with me until the very last word, because what I am about to share has layers. And if you leave before I give you what I need to tell you at the end, you will apply this teaching and misread what happens next. You cannot afford to misread it. Stay. Now, I know you. You have tried the budget apps. You have sat with the spreadsheets, tracked the categories, made the plans. You have read the books about positive thinking and the law of attraction, and spoken the affirmations into the mirror in the morning. You have taken on extra work, side projects, second jobs, things you were not built for, because you needed the income and you were willing to do what it takes. You have been generous with your time, with your money when you had it, with other people's emergencies even when it stretched you thin. And still there is a ceiling. Still there is a feeling that the ground under your financial life is softer than it should be by now. Still something is not moving. Here is what I have watched for 30 years. None of those strategies are wrong, but they are working on the wrong layer of reality. Let me show you what I mean. Imagine a house with a cracked foundation. The cracks run deep beneath the floor you can see. Every morning you get up and repaint the walls. You reorganize the furniture. You fix the plumbing. The house looks better. Some things work better, but the foundation is still cracked. And every time it rains, the same water comes in through the same cracks. Not because you are not working, but because you are working above the break instead of at the break. This is what every budget app, every motivational course, every side hustle addresses: the walls and the furniture, not the foundation. The ancient teachers of Israel, the sages whose wisdom fills the Talmud and the Zohar, they understood something that modern financial science is only beginning to approach. They understood that the physical world is an expression of a spiritual root. What you see in your bank account is a shadow, the visible print of an invisible cause. And you cannot fix the shadow by touching the shadow. You must go to what is casting it. And the tradition has given us a precise map for doing exactly that. A map preserved not because it is religious doctrine, but because it produces results. Let me show you where it starts. I was 23 years old. It was a Tuesday morning in late October, and I was sitting at my grandmother's kitchen table on Rehov Agrippa's in Jerusalem. The window was open. I could smell the Machane Yehuda market from the street below. cardamom, fresh bread, someone frying something that made the whole stairwell warm. And my grandmother, Safta Rivka, 81 years old, 5 feet tall, and the most formidable woman I have ever met in my life, was watching me with the particular expression she reserved for people who were about to make a costly mistake. I was newly married. My husband was in his second year of rabbinical study. We had almost nothing, I mean that literally, enough for rent and food and almost nothing beyond that. And I had developed in those early months a habit I thought was virtuous. I cleaned obsessively, every morning, every evening, and I especially cleaned on Shabbat. I would put the children down for their afternoon rest on Saturday, and then, while the house was quiet, I would tidy, wipe down the counters, reorganize the toy shelf, run a load of laundry because it was the only quiet time I had in my entire week. Each thing felt responsible. Each thing felt like love. I was managing the home. I was on top of things. I felt productive. My grandmother watched me describe this with that expression on her face. And then she said, in Hebrew, in the quiet, flat voice she used when something was permanent, Naomi, every Shabbat you sweep out what is trying to come in, and then you ask God why your house feels empty. I did not understand her. I said so. She poured tea. She always poured tea before she taught anything, and she explained it the way her mother had explained it to her. She told me that Shabbat is not a day of rest the way we think of rest. It is not the absence of activity. It is a specific spiritual state, a state of receiving. She used the word menucha. Most people translate menucha as rest, but she told me that menucha is the posture of the full vessel, the open gate, the hand that is not clenched. And when you clean on Shabbat, you are not in menucha, you are in performance. You are signaling, in the language the spiritual world reads, that you do not trust what Saturday carries, that even now, even on the day designed to fill you, you are going to manage and control what arrives. She told me that the Zohar, the foundational text of Jewish mystical thought, describes Shabbat as the Makor HaBracha, the source from which all blessing flows into the other 6 days of the week. Not a source of blessing, the source. And the blessing does not flow automatically. It flows to those who are positioned to receive it. And you position yourself by stopping, genuinely stopping, not tidying, not wiping, not doing the small things that feel harmless, stopping completely. I sat with that for a long time, and I have to be honest with you, I did not change immediately. The following Shabbat, I started to reach for the cloth out of pure habit, and I put it down. But the week after that, I slipped, and the week after that. It took me almost 2 months of genuine intention before I could sit on Shabbat with an unswept floor and feel peace instead of anxiety. 2 months before the menucha was real and not just practiced. And I want you to hear that because this is not a technique that transforms things overnight. This is a rewiring, and the rewiring takes time and honesty. But about 6 weeks into genuine practice, 6 weeks of full Shabbat without picking up a broom, without reorganizing a drawer, without touching the pile of papers on the desk, something shifted in our financial situation. Not dramatically, not a windfall. A phone call came from someone who had owed my husband a sum of money for over a year. A small consulting opportunity appeared with unusual ease, and a quality inside the week itself that I cannot fully explain, like the air pressure changed, like something that had been slightly, persistently tight began to loosen. and I understood for the first time what my grandmother meant. Now let me give you the full teaching. Let me take you into the specific principles, not as rules to follow, but as mechanics to understand. Because when you understand the mechanics, the practice becomes natural. When you only know the rule, you follow it until the first difficult Saturday, and then the rule gives way. Understanding never gives way. The first principle is the nature of Shabbat itself. In Hebrew, the word Shabbat shares its root with shavat, to cease, to stop, to complete. The ancient teachers did not describe Shabbat as a pause in the week. They described it as the crown of creation. In the Talmud, the sages teach that the world received its nefesh, its soul, on the seventh day. Shabbat is not the absence of the week, it is the soul of the week. And what flows from the soul of something governs what appears in the body of it. If Shabbat is honored, the body of the week, the finances, the relationships, the health, carries that honor. If Shabbat is treated as merely a quiet afternoon for catching up, the week reflects that cheapening with precision. The second principle is the teaching of Shabbat HaMalkah, the Shabbat Queen. In the mystical tradition, Shabbat is personified as a queen who visits every Jewish home from the moment the Friday night candles are lit until 3 stars appear in the sky on Saturday night. This is not poetry, it is a description of a spiritual reality. A presence enters the home during these hours, what the tradition calls the Shekhinah, resting on the house in concentrated intensity. Now hear what this means practically. You do not clean the palace while the queen is inside it. You prepare the palace before she arrives. Everything, every sweep, every scrub, every load of laundry, every reorganization belongs to Friday, to Erev Shabbat, the eve of Shabbat. You make the home beautiful and complete before the sun goes down, the way you would prepare for the most honored guest you have ever received. And then, when the guest arrives, you stop. You sit, you receive the presents. To clean while she is in your home is not just inefficiency. It is a failure of hospitality so fundamental that it changes the quality of her visit. And the quality of her visit determines what she leaves behind when she goes. The third principle is what the Kabbalists called Shefa, divine overflow. The ancient teachers describe Shefa as a flow of spiritual energy that moves through creation on Shabbat, the way a river swells after a rain. This Shefa carries within it the seeds of everything you need: clarity, provision, connection, financial movement. It does not flow equally through everyone. It flows toward those who are open to receive it. And openness, in the language of the tradition, is not a feeling. It is a posture. It is behavioral. You demonstrate openness by stopping your performing, by releasing your managing, by sitting with the imperfect, unswept floor, and trusting that what is moving toward you in these hours is more powerful than anything you can do with a broom. Every time you clean on Shabbat, you are demonstrating that you do not believe the Shefa is enough, that you must supplement it with your own effort even now. And the Shefa, which responds to spiritual positioning and not to good intentions, simply moves on. The fourth principle is the one that takes the longest to absorb, and I want you to sit with it carefully. In the tradition, there is a teaching, Kol hamosif gorea, whoever adds, takes away. It means that when you add your own labor to a moment designed for receptivity, you do not enhance it, you diminish it. This seems paradoxical. We are raised to believe that effort always helps, that doing is always better than not doing. But the tradition teaches something more precise. There is a time for doing and a time for receiving, and confusing the two does not produce double the result. It produces neither. The person who cannot stop on Shabbat is not more diligent than the person who stops. They are more afraid. And fear, the fear that things will fall apart if you are not managing them every single day, is the most powerful channel blocker that exists in a person's financial life. It signals to the spiritual reality around you that you are the one solely responsible for making order, and so the order is left entirely to you. The divine contribution is withheld, not as punishment, because you declared with your behavior that you did not need it. Now here is the exact protocol, the practical application. Every Friday, Erev Shabbat, you give your home everything it needs. You sweep, you mop, you do laundry, you clean the bathroom. You organize whatever needs organizing. You make the home beautiful and whole before the sun goes down. This is not a burden. The preparation of the home for Shabbat is itself a sacred act. The ancient teachers called it a mitzvah, a deed of alignment. When you clean on Friday with the intention of honoring what Saturday brings, the cleaning itself becomes a channel. You are not just making a house tidy, you are building a vessel capable of holding what Shabbat sends. From sundown on Friday until 3 stars appear on Saturday night, you touch nothing in the category of household labor. If something spills during the Shabbat meal, cover it and leave it. If the counter has crumbs, leave them. If the laundry is sitting unfolded in the basket, it waits. This is not negligence. This is precision. This is knowing which moment you are in and acting accordingly. And if this feels uncomfortable, and it will, especially in the first weeks, I want you to understand that the discomfort is the teaching itself. The impulse to get up and do something is the wound announcing itself. Every time you feel that pull and you sit back down, you are healing something. You are practicing in your body the belief that you are allowed to receive, that the world will not collapse in the 24 hours you are not managing it. One more thing about the preparation that people miss. The cleaning on Friday must be intentional, not frantic. If you are running through the house in anxiety, panicking about getting everything perfect before sundown, that is not Erev Shabbat. That is fear wearing the costume of observance. The preparation should carry the feeling of a host who loves the guest who is arriving. Purposeful, warm, even joyful. The way you would prepare if someone you deeply honored was coming to spend the night. Because someone is. When Shabbat ends on Saturday night, after Havdalah, the short and beautiful ceremony of separation that marks the transition from sacred to ordinary, everything resumes. The tradition teaches that doing practical work immediately after Havdalah carries a special quality of blessing, as if the movement from genuine receiving back into doing when the receiving has been real charges what follows with something that doing alone cannot generate. Begin your week from that place. What you are looking for as the weeks unfold is not a windfall. I have observed people experience an unexpected call from a dormant contact within the first 2 weeks, a financial door that had been stuck beginning to move, a sudden and unusual clarity about a decision they had been circling for months, a quality of ease inside the daily work that feels different, as if something that had been slightly wrong in the frequency of their lives had been corrected. These are the first fruits. When you notice them, say thank you out loud. Name what arrived, because acknowledgement deepens the channel, and silence over a blessing is a missed opportunity to strengthen the very thing that produced it. What I have shared with you today is real, and it is a living piece of a much larger architecture. If you apply it, you will feel the shift. But I want to be honest with you about something. One brick does not make a building, and the financial patterns most people carry have been building for years, sometimes for generations. One change to your Shabbat practice is a powerful beginning, but it is a beginning. For the past several years, I have been compiling the full teaching, the complete map of the sacred home and its relationship to financial flow. It covers every room of the home and what each room represents in the spiritual architecture of abundance. It covers the objects that open the channel and the objects that silently block it. things most people have in their homes right now that are working against them without their knowledge. It covers the times of day that carry special financial significance, the words that must never be spoken in a home where prosperity is being built, and the specific practices transmitted within our tradition for generations. It is not a collection of tips. It is the architectural plan. The link is in the description below this video. If you are serious about making a permanent shift, not a one-week experiment, but a fundamental change in the frequency of your financial life, move now while the clarity is present. Clarity is a form of invitation, and invitations have a natural window. Before I close, I need to tell you something that most teachers skip, and it is one of the most important things I will say today. In the first 1 to 3 Shabbatot, after you genuinely apply this teaching, something will happen. Something will feel urgent. It might be that the house looks more cluttered than usual, and there will be a pull to just deal with it quickly. It might be that a financial situation feels suddenly more pressured, a bill, a payment, something that tightens in a way that feels poorly timed. And a very convincing voice, your own voice, full of logic, will say, "This is too small a thing to matter," or "I cannot afford to not handle this right now," or "This practice is clearly not working." That voice is not your wisdom. That voice is the test. And the test is always the same. Do you trust the process, or do you trust the panic? What feels like pressure is not evidence that the gate has closed. In the spiritual mechanics of this teaching, what I have watched over and again is that the tightening often arrives precisely when the opening begins, because something old must be cleared to make room for what is moving in. This is the vessel being tested. The question is, when it costs something to stay in the posture of receiving, will you stay? Every time you pass that test, every time you put the broom down and return to your seat, you deepen the channel. Every time the fear wins and you reach for something to manage, you reset. Not forever. You can always begin again. But you must know this is coming so you do not misread it as failure. What looks like a setback in the first weeks of this practice is almost always the sign of something beginning to move. Tell me in the comments, which principle from today's teaching are you applying this coming Shabbat? The Shefa, the Shabbat Queen, the Menucha, the protocol of Friday preparation? Name it specifically. Tell me the one thing you are committing to doing differently this week. I want to know who is taking action. I read every single comment, and the names I see there are the people I carry with me into my own prayers. If this teaching is something you want to continue receiving, week after week, principle by principle, press the subscribe button now and turn on the notification bell. Next week, I am going to reveal something about the front door of your home that most families have never been told. What you place at the entrance, and what you must never place there, communicates something specific to the abundance that is trying to find you. If you are not subscribed with the bell on, you will not see it when it arrives. And if something in today's teaching reached something real in you, if something shifted or clarified, or gave language to a feeling you have carried but could not name, press the like button. Not for a number on a screen, because there is someone out there right now who is standing in their kitchen on a Saturday afternoon, broom in hand, wondering why nothing is changing despite everything they are doing. That like tells the platform that this wisdom has value. It puts this teaching in front of that person. You become the messenger through which they receive it. And in this tradition, the messenger carries a portion of the blessing they deliver to someone else. May your home become a true vessel, open, prepared, and ready to receive what Shabbat brings to every family that honors it. May the week ahead carry the quality of ease that comes only from genuine menucha. And may the financial life you have been working so hard to build begin, at last, to reflect what has always been yours. Shabbat Shalom.